So what do Colorado Springs, Colorado, Sutherland Springs, Texas, Fort Worth, Texas, Antioch, Tennessee, and Charleston, South Carolina all have in common? They're all places where houses of worship became hot zones in an instant when shooters came in and started killing people at random. So today we're going to talk to an expert in the subject of church security, my friend Tim Miller. That's coming up right now on The Hot Zone.
This is The Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Faith Baptist Church serves a semi-rural area of southern West Virginia. Pastor Larry Halsey has shepherded this congregation of over 400 for more than 20 years.
Well, we recognize that although we're in a small community in southern West Virginia, that we're living in a different time. We have been in our new facility for about 5 years now, and there was the increasing sense that we have been unprepared to meet the challenges of the 21st century. We had some meetings, and our leadership team recognized immediately the need to ramp up, to organize, which we had not really done. And we're very excited about what has happened in the last several months. We have a formal security team in place. Our people feel secure.
After Lionheart come to the church and did the seminar, it made us much more aware of the areas that we really needed to start looking into. Our church really has, it's not a large church. We're a medium-sized church with 350, 400 members. We're located on approximately a 10-acre site. Probably a month ago, the high school was broken in on a Sunday morning. But I would feel better if we could grow our security team to where all the functions, anytime there was a function in the church, whether it be a wedding, funeral, or whatever, there would be security. We have tried to institute a lockdown system where all the doors are locked down after the service begins, except the one door. That makes anybody coming into the church at one point, it's easy to control, see who's coming and going. We have 2 stories. The children's downstairs, so we have a security person down there as well to make sure if kids go to the bathroom, they don't wander outside. There's just so much more to the security that we hadn't thought of. Another thing is we have an older congregation. Just this morning, one of the men who's well up in age come out, was very weak, his sugar was dropping. So it made us a lot more aware of the health issues, which goes along with the safety.
We are continuing to upgrade our equipment and to just tweak our organization and the Sunday by Sunday running of the ministry.
We don't have as large a security team as we want. We're working on it. Our parking lot is not huge, so we can cover that pretty much from the front. Then the next security is in the entrance. We usually have 2 people in the entry in case one would have to leave or attend to something else. We still have the security there. We have tried to not overcomplicate things. We just picked the radios we picked up was Midland radios. They're an inexpensive radio with the earpieces and things, but it does an adequate job. We're trying to cover all bases, but yet keep it as economically as possible.
We see it as a work in progress, but we have some very capable leaders who have stepped up with a commitment to the security of this church family.
We've designated an area of the church for a triage area in case something were to happen. Sometimes a simple medical problem, if it's not treated correctly, can make the situation worse. Our next big goal, as far as the security team, is to purchase and implement the security cameras. We have a situation where our school uses this building a lot too. So it would help in activities where the students are here. From a legal standpoint, then anything that would be done, then you would have a backup.
We have found that this training is making a significant difference in our church and ministry. This organization has just brought a level of understanding to our church family as to the time in which we live and the necessity of being prepared for whatever might be thrust upon us.
Thanks to you, you've opened our eyes up to just so many areas. I think so many times people in a church just take for granted, that we was living 50 years ago. We're not. The church ultimately is responsible for the people that are worshiping here.
Tim, good to see you. I'm really excited to be here at Fort Lauderdale, or West Palm Beach, I guess.
Yeah.
Tell me about your church and what we see behind us and how you are involved with all this.
Yeah. So, Chuck, any security program, especially at a church, has to be tailor-made for the organization. Mm-hmm. So you think about a church, we're a church of about 35, 40,000 over the weekends. We run 10 campuses.
So that's not in one place.
No, it's 10 different campuses across the spectrum. So we have a campus out in the middle of farmland. We've got them right downtown. Well, with each campus comes unique security challenges.
And you're head of security for all 10 campuses.
That's correct.
So you oversee the whole thing.
I oversee the whole thing. Typically, that's about 250 key volunteers. Plus, I don't want to go into the numbers, but police and off-duty officers as well.
Well, how'd you get to this point? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I started out of college as a Marine officer, spent 5 years on active duty. Interestingly enough, was assigned to a Marine security force, protecting nuclear weapons. Graduated, from the Marine Corps into the reserves, into the real life, I call it, and jumped into law enforcement, was a police officer outside of Fairfax County, Virginia, and then ultimately a Secret Service agent. And then left the Secret Service, worked drugs, counter narcotics with the Department of Homeland Security, and then retired as the director of training.
Mm-hmm. And that we met when you were working for, actually, you're just going to work for US FDA, I think.
Yeah, actually, when we met, I was the liaison from Homeland Security into the FBI, if you remember.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Office of Anti-Terrorism. So.
Yeah, boy, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, well, you were a lot younger then.
I didn't.
And better looking.
Well, anyway, so we've been talking about church security, you and I, for a long time.
Yeah.
Tell me about the state of security in the United States for our churches. More than 76,000 churches around the country. I'm talking just evangelical ones.
Right.
And what are you hearing as far as their needs and where they're at security-wise?
Yeah, well, Chuck, it wasn't too long ago that churches were safe places. You and I were raised, you never thought about violence in a church. Churches was where you went to make sure you were safe. Right. It's not the case anymore. Obviously, we're seeing dramatic increases, in numbers of attacks, in severity of attacks. Don't have to think long for the Texas shooting to come to mind, massacre in churches. So I think churches as a whole are beginning to wake up.
Well, and there are a lot more attacks other than the big ones that we hear about.
Yeah,
I read that you have some kind of security incident like that at your church almost every week.
Yeah, we're dealing with a wide variety of security threats. When I first came here, security wasn't a high priority. Unfortunately, it is now. Because we're dealing with everything from domestic situations, child custody issues, to mental illness manifesting itself, to people that are just angry with the church for a variety of reasons. But if you think of any one of those three, it can become explosive just like that. And so the difference between, when I was a cop and as a Secret Service agent was, law enforcement is largely reactive. You get a call, you go, you try to clean up the mess. Secret Service or security is proactive. It's all about making it not happen. So bringing that mindset, because a lot of churches will have detail officers, they call them. But at the end of the day, the officer's presence is not a security program. So it's really important that security in a church is designed around Monday through Sunday, not just weekends. Interesting, a statistic you and I talk about all the time, 60% of violent incidents at churches occur during the week. So you got to be thinking about a comprehensive program. And, you know, churches kind of get intimidated. Oh, we don't need a big security program. No, you don't need a big security program, but you need an effective security program. And that's where good men and women across the country, they just stand up. It's time to protect our churches. When I'm talking to pastors, I don't do it with fear. Their jobs is to be a shepherd. And they shepherd them spiritually, and all I'm asking them to do is think about the physical protection of their flocks. And most pastors are, hey, you know what? You're right. We do have to think about that.
Well, a lot of people think that a church security program is basically get a couple of concealed carry guys to stand out in the foyer, and that's it. I mean, But we can see when I follow you around here, it's a much more comprehensive, holistic, kind of whole of the church. A program, right?
Yeah, it's good. So basically, when I work with churches, I remind them there are three things you got to have if you want an effective, remember that Monday through Sunday security program. And that's the right-hearted team. Man, if you put guys that want to be SWAT or, you know, MI6 into a church security program, it's a disaster because we're here to serve people. So you got to have that right-hearted team, but then you got to marry that team with training. Church security is different. You know, we're going to approach people different. We're going to have conversations because the reality is we want broken people to come. Think about that. Not so in the Secret Service. You don't want broken people coming, but here we want broken people coming. And then you marry that good team with the good training with good technology, which is what you're seeing here. Because those three legs of a stool, man, and it doesn't have to be this big billion-dollar thing. You know, you can go to Walmart and get a, 8-pack of HD cameras now, children's ministry. Man, we're dealing with allegations in children's ministry. Well, it's pretty cool to be able to pull up a video and go, okay, now when did that happen again? And watch people go, oh. So church security is as much about protecting the integrity of the organization as just protecting people's lives.
Yeah, I mean, the purity of the church is absolutely paramount.
Yeah.
And this is one way that you can ensure that. Both for good and for ill. But also, tell me about how you train. What kind of training are you putting your people through, and what would you suggest for a small church? 100, 200 people.
Yes, and I get asked that question a lot. Let me just say that I have a passion for training. One of the things I did when I was training agents was we had to review the videotapes of officers dying because we have that now with Dashcam. And you realize that great training really does protect an officer's life, and it protects an agent's life if they can learn how to think and how to respond and how to have skills in advance. When that crisis period comes, they're ready for it. And so I kind of adopted that here. How do we physically, mentally prepare way before an incident? That's one of the things I train, what happens in your mind and body? Because about 50 or 60% of my team, they're not law enforcement. They haven't had that training. So we start there. And then we start with the skills that we desperately need. Number one, how to pray with people. Well, that's kind of an important skill to have because you may be that first point of contact. But then we move into de-escalation techniques because that's 99.99% of what we do. We talk about how to deal with the mentally ill. But then we also move into, no joke, active violence training. Our guys need to know how to respond, God forbid, if that shooter shows up at our campuses. And we train some more because you're only as good, the equivalent would be a professional athlete. Can you imagine a championship team not training all the time?
Yeah, especially because we've got, these are our most cherished assets we're bringing to the church and our family. And I want to know that the church is protecting those people, is taking that protection seriously, and is doing what needs to be done to make them safe and not worried about the political aspect of it or how it's going to look.
Right.
I want church security that is right full on when I bring my family.
That's a good word. I tell our teams every week, they'll tell you, I know, Tim, that precious family that's walking in the door right now with that beautiful little girl and that little boy, and they're leading them to the nursery, they're praying we get it right.
Yeah.
Big responsibility.
Yeah. Well, Tim and I have been working together for some time, and a while ago we created a series of church security training videos. And you can go and watch those training videos. As a matter of fact, for subscribers to the podcast, I'm going to give them a link to be able to preview that and take a look at those church security videos. And I would highly recommend that you get those and that you share them with the security team at your church. And you go and ask your pastor, what's the right way to approach your pastor about
That's a great question.
your church security program?
Yeah, again, I think it's not with a pastor, can I carry a big Glock or small Glock? I think it's all about, hey, this is an important function in the church. We want to serve the body by doing this. We want to serve humbly. We want to serve people. We want you to know it's not our job to keep people out. It's our job to screen people and make sure that the right people are coming in. If you're coming with a drug habit, good. Come. We just want to get you to the place where you can get the help you need. I think most pastors think security is about keeping people out. It's not at this church. This is about the stewardship of protecting God's people and places. And so I think when pastors hear that, it's a right focus, they're all in. They want that because ours is a healthy ministry. I mean, we have small group Bible studies. I mean, it's a great ministry. And what we found is that this ministry attracts people who don't normally come and serve. Because, cops and military guys, but now all of a sudden they're with another group of warriors and they're like, this is pretty cool. We didn't know we could do this in the church. Yeah. And so it gives them purpose too.
Well, that's great. And, it is just so important these days to do. So I appreciate the hard work that you're doing in that arena. And, you can look up, Tim, tell us where we can find more about your company.
Yeah, so my company is Lionheart International Services Group. It's www.lhisg.com.
Lionheart International Services Group.
Yeah.
lhisg.com. Check it out. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for all the good work you do.
That's it for today's Hot Zone. Thanks for watching.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.